Hey guys, I'm Tiffany,
I'm Stephanie,
and we're Sisters
Sisters
of the
of the
South.
South.
Back with another true crime story for you today. But before we get started, we would just like to remind everyone to please hit that like button, subscribe for more true crime content every week, and hit that little notification bell because that'll let you know when your favorite sisters are back with another story. And we want to give a little shout out to our friends over at SoFly.
So fly!
SoFly!
Not so small!
Not no more.
Yeah.
And I'll let Stephanie tell you about them now.
SoFly is a family-owned company here in the Houston, Texas area, and they specialize in embroidery and lasering. So they will take accessories such as a hoodie, a cap, maybe an apron, and a purse. They'll do a purse as well, and they will specialize it to your needs. They'll put your logo, initials, your name on that with embroidery, and they also have an array of different colors that you can choose from. With the lasering, you can do carving boards, you can do keychains, and we just had some tumblers that were done, and they are absolutely stunning. So we know that you'll be happy. Reach out to them, pull that trigger just one time, try them out. But I know that you want to see a little bit of their products. So we're going to show a video just to let you know how fabulous they are. So here we go.
All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed that video. Go check them out. Let them know we sent you. And if you do buy something, please send those pictures. We need ideas for our own stuff.
Inspiration is always good.
That's right. So, with all of that being said, Stephanie's going to tell us the story.
We are going to link their information in the description box below. We're going to talk about Francis Augustus Hammer, also known as Frank or Pancho, and he was born on March 17, 1884 in Fairview, Wilson County, Texas. He grew up on the Welch Ranch in San Saba County. The family moved to Oxford, Texas in 1894. Hammer worked in his father's blacksmith shop and later was a wrangler on the ranch for Barry Ketchum. In 1905, while working as a cowboy on the Carr Ranch, Hammer helped to capture a horse thief. Impressed by his skills and his 6'2" stature, the sheriff recommended Hammer to the Texas Rangers.
Nice.
And I know that we have a little Texas pride going on here. So this story is kind of for Tiff. Anytime I do a story specifically for Texas, I always kind of write it with her in mind because she has Texas pride.
Oh, I'm full of it.
She is full of it. Now, mind you, she was born here. I was brought here as soon as my dad could get me here. But she was literally conceived and born on Texas soil.
Actually, the story is our mother could not have another one until she came here. So
it was just meant to be.
for me to be a Texan.
She is special. She's actually, she was actually the firstborn Texan from our generations that come over here to America. So she was the very firstborn Texas in our family until I started having children. So she actually is the root of our Texas heritage here. So kudos to you.
Oh, thank you.
Texas is lucky to have you.
Yes, and I married someone who goes back generations Texan, so it's pretty cool.
Yep, me too. So you got to love those Texas men.
That's right.
So Hammer joined the Rangers in April of 1906. Strong, quick thinking, and an expert marksman, Hammer was a natural fit for the Texas Rangers. He joined the state agency in 1906 and served on and off for the next quarter century with side ventures taking him to other law enforcement posts in Texas. So it just sounds like he was a lawman from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, it was just in his blood. Maybe it was a calling, but he was just born to do it. He became part of Captain J.H. Rogers Company C, patrolling the border in South Texas. In 1908, he resigned from the Rangers to become the city marshal of Navasota, Texas. And this is a little town not too far from where we live, and it is so cute, and it has a little historical area, and I never knew this about Frank Hammer.
I didn't either. I think that's cool.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool. I wonder if they have anything there that has his historical information.
I don't know. We've been meaning to go, so I should look for it.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter is about to go into 7th grade and start Texas history, so we kind of want her. She's like, history's so boring, and I'm like, Texas history is so cool. So
Yeah,
I'm excited. We kind of want to take her different places, and
Navasota would be a great one. Yeah, look for Frank Hammer, see if anything's there about him.
that would be cool.
This led to the acquisition of his famous Colt 45, nicknamed Old Lucky. And this kind of tells you what kind of personality he is, right? Because he's naming his gun.
That's awesome.
I think it's cute. I think it's cool. With your guns and your firearms, you kind of form a relationship and bond with them, especially if you have them on you all the time.
Like Willie Nelson and his guitar.
Yeah. Name trigger.
Yes. But that just means he has it on him constantly.
Yes, it becomes an extra limb.
Yeah.
And so when you have an extra limb, of course you're going to name it.
Of course.
And I thought Old Lucky was cute.
I like it.
So while serving as Marshal of Navasota, Hammer married Ida Gladys Johnson on May 12, 1917. Ida had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and Hammer adopted them. They would go on to have 2 sons together, Francis Augustus Hammer Jr. and Billy Beckham Hammer. And I thought that was really, really kind and generous of him to adopt the 2 daughters that would be his stepdaughters, that he adopted them. That kind of shows his character and how serious that he took his commitment to Ida.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started building in my mind what kind of person Hammer would be as I was reading on and doing this research. Hammer served in this position until April 1911, when he became a special officer in Harris County. Hammer rejoined the Rangers in 1915. And I didn't even know he had done anything in Harris County till this story is
I
out.
think that's cool.
So he kind of served a lot here in what we'd call the Gulf Coast area, East Texas. So I thought that was pretty neat that he went from Navasota, which would be, I think, Washington County, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably.
And then he went a county over and started serving in Harris County,
which is where we are.
Yes, which is our county. So, and the thing is, I've never seen anything about that. So I think it's kind of cool. By this time, Frank was once again patrolling the South Texas border from the Big Bend to Brownsville. The Rangers dealt with armed smugglers, bootleggers, and bandits throughout the area. In 1921, Hammer transferred headquarters company in Austin, now part of Company F, and served as senior ranger captain. In the 1920s, Hammer was instrumental in helping to bring order to the oil boom towns such as Mahia and Borger. Hammer's reputation as a man of strong morals became widely known by the late 1920s when he challenged the Texas Bankers Association for a bounty system that encouraged the killing of bank robbers. He also earned renown for defending African American suspects from lynch mobs, though his efforts weren't enough to ward off catastrophe in May of 1930 when an angry crowd in Sherman burned a courthouse to the ground to get to arrest the suspect. By early 1933, with newly reelected Governor Ma Ferguson overhauling the organization, Hammer was no longer an active ranger. So this is our 3rd video to talk about Ma Ferguson.
Yeah.
And if you've watched those videos, you know that we really like Ma a lot.
We are a fan.
We are a fan. And so when I started doing research on Frank Hammer, I automatically thought this guy's an asshole. And I don't really like him much because he wasn't for Ma Ferguson, and he was one of the Rangers that quit or decided to dissolve his relationship with the Rangers because of Ma Ferguson. So I already had judged him. I mean, rightfully so, right?
He's doing a lot, though. He is
Yeah.
very active, you know.
In serving the community.
Yes.
And, you got to think he comes from the old school men make the decisions. Men need to rule and be in areas of power. And so he probably he just couldn't get on board,
Well, yeah, but
you
he was
know.
also a Texas Ranger, and we've
Mhm.
done, stories where the Texas Rangers were the badasses that didn't want to answer to a woman.
Right.
We're going to do what we want to do. We're not listening to you. So that is his mindset,
Yeah.
obviously.
And I think they kind of wanted to not listen to anyone. They wanted to
Oh,
do it
no.
their way. And Ma Ferguson wasn't the sweet, soft-spoken lady who was just going to sit down and let Frank Hammer do what he wanted to do.
She couldn't have been in her position if she was
No.
that lady.
No, she wasn't putting up with no shit.
That's right.
And Frank Hammer, to say the least, sounds very bold to me. And he's convicted in his calling.
Mhm.
So I got to be honest. I think that although Ma Ferguson and Frank Hammer didn't see eye to eye, I think they probably had mutual respect for one another due to their positions of power.
Right.
And so, I'll give kudos to Frank Hammer. He didn't agree with where Ma Ferguson was taking the Texas Rangers. So he said, you know what? I don't belong here. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to leave. So I'll give him some credit for that. And I think that there was probably some mutual respect. And she was probably glad he left.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure she's like, oh, good. I ain't got to deal with him.
One less asshole to deal
Right.
with.
At least for now.
Yeah.
At least for now. So in 1934, the retired Captain Hammer was hired as a special investigator for the Texas prison system to track down gangsters, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow.
Of course.
I mean, Ma Ferguson, she was a part of this calling and she's like, damn it. Who do I need to get these thieves and these guys off the streets?
The biggest badasses around.
The biggest asshole I can find. Who would that be? Frank Hammer. Oh God, bless it. I'm sure that her and Pa had many late night talks about it, and she probably had a little anxiety about even having to approach him because their separation wasn't a happy one when he left the Texas Rangers and she took office as governor. So I'm sure her pride really talked her off the ledge a few times, but she wanted Bonnie and Clyde found and she wanted them off the streets. They were causing a lot of chaos. They were causing victims to be, death to the victims, and she didn't want that. So, and when you're holding, a governor's position, you've got to do what you got to do to keep the state of Texas safe.
Yeah, you put your pride aside and do what you got to do.
She did the right thing. So the notorious outlaws had killed more than a dozen law enforcement officers and unarmed citizens in a crime spree spanning several states. The Texas prison system became involved when the Barrow Gang broke into a state prison, freed a gang member, and killed an officer. After a 3-month search, Hammer, Texas, and Louisiana law enforcement officers set up an ambush near Gibbsland, Louisiana. On the morning of May 23, 1934, with Bonnie and Clyde expecting to return to the Mifflin home, Ivy was instructed to park his truck on the main road into town and pretend like he was changing a tire. At around 9:15 a.m., Bonnie and Clyde thundered down the road in their Ford V8 and slowed to help. Hammer had hoped to take them alive, but the plan evaporated when a logging truck also appeared, and the confusion causing one deputy to open fire. With Bonnie and Clyde reaching for their weapons, the floodgates opened, and the lawmen decisively ended the battle by pumping 167 bullets and buckshot at the car's passengers. The highly publicized shootout brought Hammer the sort of widespread attention he despised. He said he would not attend the proposed Hammer Galt Hero Day in Austin and turned down all media offers to share his story of the Bonnie and Clyde investigation with the public. That kind of surprised me.
Why?
Well, I'm not going to lie, I've watched too many movies about Bonnie and Clyde. I also did a lot of research on them as well.
Oh, yeah.
But Hammer is always depicted as the kind of guy who, yeah, maybe he was subdued and maybe a little melancholy, but it seemed like he got a thrill out of hunting Bonnie and Clyde in the movies on that side of it, Hollywood. And that he was tickled pink to show himself off as being the ones who caught and got rid of Bonnie and Clyde. So I pictured him to be a little bit more, uh, excited about being, in the spotlight. That's just how I pictured him to be.
I don't know. I don't see him that way.
Well, Kevin
guess-
Costner did a really good job pulling him off, actually, after doing the research. But I just still thought he would just be, taking all the credit and, doing the parades and stuff. I just thought that, he had that ego going and it needed to be fed. But evidently, he didn't want no part of it.
Yeah.
And, honestly, I respect him for that because he was doing a job.
Well, and just listening to the history of everything he's done, I don't think he's out to get the glory for it. I think he's doing it because that's what he feels like he needs to do. So it doesn't really surprise me
Yeah.
that he doesn't need to be in the forefront of all of this
Right.
stuff.
Yeah. He just did what he needed to do to make sure that he took Bonnie and Clyde off the streets. And he did a really good job. Although he wasn't the only one involved, he was the
Right.
main person involved, and he tracked them down a lot. He stayed on their tails for a very long time
Mhm.
before this happened. So he's the main person in taking down Bonnie and Clyde. So, nevertheless, Hammer enjoyed a lucrative post Ranger career as a head of a private security company. Hammer worked for various oil companies and shippers, helping to prevent strikes and breaking up mobs. He was called again to Ranger duty in 1948 by Governor Coke Stevenson to help check election returns in Jim Wells and Duval County in the U.S. Senate race. Frank Hammer retired in 1949. He died of congenital heart failure in his sleep on July 10, 1955, at the age of 71, at his home in Austin, and was buried in Austin Memorial Park Cemetery. Officiating over his funeral, Texas Ranger Chaplain Pierre Bernard Hill characterized Hammer as a man who feared the Almighty God, but never feared the face of any man. Hammer is an inductee in the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame.
I love that.
I
Ugh,
got chills.
I love it.
I got chills because
That's so cool.
I think that what the chaplain said about Hammer summarized his life perfectly and him as a human being perfectly.
Yeah.
And so once I read everything, it kind of put everything into place. Hammer might not have been the grandfatherly type, but he was put here to do a job, and it was a calling, and he did it well. But he didn't need fireworks and, a party to celebrate what he did. You know what I mean? He did it because he loved it. And I just think, man,
He might have been the grandfatherly type on the other side. There was probably like two sides of him,
Yeah.
which I think is so cool. I mean, we have a dad like that a little bit. I mean, he's
That's
got
true.
his, like soft side with us and his grandkids, unless we mess up. And then there's
That's a whole
he's
different.
not so soft.
True. That's true.
And then there's a whole different side of him,
Yes. That's true.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, Frank Hammer, I'm sure he had the family man side to him, but he took his job very seriously. And so I admire him for that. So I went into this story really not wanting to like him too much, to be honest.
You told me that, and I thought, what's he
Yeah.
like? I wonder.
Yeah, I kind of didn't want to like him because he went against Ma Ferguson. I'm like, well, what an asshole. Like, he just quit the Rangers because a woman got in there and he
But it
didn't want
may
to.
not have completely been, here I am like devil's advocate, but it may not
No.
be like completely because she was a woman.
Yeah.
You know, there are those things where you just bump heads and you just can't quite work with that person. And that may have been them.
Well,
Because she did
true.
have enough respect to call him back and say, look, you're the one we need
Yeah.
to do this job.
Yes.
You know, where if it
That's
had been
true.
too bad, I don't think she would have chosen someone else.
I mean, heck, maybe he didn't like Pa Ferguson,
Maybe.
you know, and
I
maybe
mean,
that
there
hindered
might have
him
been
from moving
something
forward.
there
Yes. But
that
in
he
the
thought, okay, I
end,
need to back off. This is
yes.
not for me right now.
Yeah. And I think he did the right thing. But I do think there had to have been some sort of mutual respect for them to go back into the same situation, but work hard to bring justice to the victims of Bonnie and Clyde.
I agree.
And Bonnie and Clyde needed to be taken down. And I am so glad that Ma Ferguson approached Frank Hammer, and he can go down in history as the man who took down Bonnie and Clyde.
That's right.
I think it's awesome. So, yeah, guys, what do you think? Maybe there's a perspective I haven't thought of. I'm always open to listening. So, leave some comments down there. Let me know what you think. We love to read them, we love to respond. It just makes our day. But until the next time, guys, remember to see the good and stay imperfectly perfect.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.